Hello and welcome to this month's edition of Mytech U. My name is Nathan Austin. I'll be your moderator today. Mytech U is a monthly session where we offer on business and technical topics. And today we are going to be highlighting 25 Microsoft Office 365 tips and tricks. We are joined by Kim Finney, who's our service manager out of our Colorado location. She's actually one of the folks on our team that are certified to deliver this content from Microsoft. So we're excited to have Kim on the phone today and presenting today. But before I hand things over to Kim, a couple housekeeping items. One, for all the attendees listening, thank you and welcome. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please use your questions panel on the control panel there, and we will either do our best to interject those questions into the session, or we will answer them offline afterwards. The session is being recorded, and you'll get a follow-up email tomorrow with the link to the recording that you can then reference for future reference, as well as share with others if you feel appropriate. So, Kim, just to introduce yourself really quick before we dig into the presentation. Kim?
Sorry about that. I was on mute by mistake. I'm excited to be here. As Nate said, I've joined the team with Mytech that does the customer immersion experience through Microsoft. So this is a lot of really great information. There's so much in Office 365 that you learn something new every time you touch it. So excited to be here.
Yeah, and Kim, that is so true. Someone asked me yesterday, I'm actually at the Microsoft conference, their annual conference, and someone asked me yesterday, how do you keep up with all of it? And the reality is, I tell them that it's really hard because every single time we touch it and we've been trained on it, we find something new as well. So, yeah, so with that said, I do want to highlight that we actually do run half-day sessions. Kim, if you wouldn't mind advancing to the next slide, thank you. So we have a couple upcoming, and I mentioned this for a couple of reasons at the beginning here. One, because for those of you, if any of you online today have attended these sessions, some of the content will be a bit duplicated, but we wanted to do this format to kind of record it and save it so it can be referenced in the future. But for those of you who haven't attended one of these sessions, these are free. You kind of see a picture of how we set it up in a way so that we actually put computers in front of you, and we kind of take you on a guided tour through all the stuff so you can kind of discover it yourself. And we work to try and solve some communication and collaboration problems that you may be having in your organization, or at least give you ways in which you can solve them. So we have July 27th in Colorado is the next one. And actually, by the time you get the email tomorrow, the next one is actually going to be scheduled. And there's a couple in Minnesota, August 3rd and September 7th already scheduled out. You can always find our events at mytech.com/events. We'll remind you about that at the end of the session, but I definitely wanted to preempt this because for those of you who may have been to one of those, that this is similar content, just presented in a different way. So, all right, before I hand it over to Kim, one thing. This is going to be a rapid fire, 25 tips and tricks. If you do the math, that's 60 to 90 seconds per tip and trick. So we got to get rolling here so we can make sure we can get everything covered inside of the 45 minutes that you've given us today, and we thank you for that. So that said, Kim, take it away, and let's start going through the tips and tricks.
Okay, sounds good. So let's start with Office 365 as a whole. When you log into the Office 365 portal, which can be found at portal.office.com, you'll see kind of a basic page with your apps and a couple of options. The apps shown are your most commonly used. You can look at Explore apps to get information on some things that maybe you've never touched before, or go ahead and open them there. You can also go to what Microsoft calls the waffle, and you'll be able to explore all of the apps. Most people aren't really aware that there is so much content here within Office 365.
Yeah, thank you for that, Kim.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was to say on the waffle, that's one of the things that most people. One of the things we found is that most people, if they have Office 365, they may only be using Outlook, and they may have never actually gone to, you know, office.com and actually logged in with their username and password and realized they have access to all these applications. So the first tip that we wanted to share is go here, go to office.com, log in with your same username and password, and you'll see what applications you have access to right in that portal. And don't forget the waffle.
Excellent. All right, so moving on, OneDrive, fantastic feature in Office 365. You can do files online only, download them to your device so they're available to you all the time, and then you can also mark some files as important. You can also share files and folders internally and externally if you're working with, say, some clients outside of your business. And then you can also sync OneDrive with SharePoint. There's a couple of handy things there. So let's dive on into OneDrive.
All right.
So in OneDrive, you'll see all of your files there listed. This is on the online version. You'll also have it available on your File Explorer local to your computer for any existing files that you have downloaded.
And one of the things, as you showed that section, Kim, that I like to point out is that anywhere in SharePoint, under the, if you notice a little sync icon at the top of your screen that you just had there, that is actually where you can sync to OneDrive. So anywhere, if you're anywhere in SharePoint or a file repository online, if you go to office.com and you go to SharePoint or any of the document repositories, you'll see that sync icon, and that's where you can actually define what to sync. Now, if you synced it at this level, it would sync everything in this view, but if you clicked into one of the folders or clicked into one of the files, you'd start being able to just sync those respective files. So those are some of the cool things you can do there. And then, yeah, so it's nice to be able to have that granularity. And then I'll actually show you, I'll switch the over to my screen here, and I'll show everyone. And Kim, just let me know if you can see my screen.
I can see it.
All right, very good, thank you. So if you notice, one of the things, I'm in just my regular File Explorer window. You see my different files and folders, and I have Dropbox and OneDrive. I have multiple OneDrives actually, and a personal OneDrive. So that's one of the things that we like to show too, is that you can actually very easily manage, you know, if you're part of a board of directors and they have a OneDrive that you can sync if part of your corporate, or if you even have a personal OneDrive that Microsoft gives you for free, you can manage all of that all together. And so I'll click on to the corporate OneDrive, and if you notice, as you go over here, you'll see a status column. And you notice there's different icons. There's a cloud, which means that it shows on my machine, so I can quickly access it from my computer, but the files are actually stored in the cloud. Whereas you notice this one, actually prior to the session, I intentionally started a sync, and then I canceled it, but to get hopefully to get the icon, so you see this is what happens when it's actually in the process of syncing. And then the checkbox means it's actually been downloaded to your machine. One of the things that one of the ways, a little trivia in the way in which I use OneDrive, that actually connects from my mobile, that was the trivia about OneDrive. We can connect it to your mobile and to your devices, your laptop, is that I actually have a folder called reimbursement receipts. So when I'm traveling or if I'm taking a picture, I'll take a picture of the receipt, and right from my phone, I can actually save it to my OneDrive on my phone, which I can't show you on this session, but I actually save it to the reimbursement receipts folder. So that way I don't have to take the picture, and I don't have to email it to myself. I can just take the picture and save it right there from my phone, and it automatically goes to my folder. And now if you notice, I have this on the cloud, but if I right-click on this, you'll actually see I've got a few different options. In particular, in this section right here, where I can either share, I can view it online, so it should open it up online. I can always keep on this device, so it always keeps it synced to that green checkbox. Or if I had it synced, this is one of the new features that's available in OneDrive, because one of the challenges people had was they basically had to sync everything or nothing. And so this gives you an opportunity to where you can be very granular as far as saying, I don't want to keep it on this device, but I want to have visibility to it. Because typically your local machines don't have as much capacity, of course, not typically, they don't have as much capacity as the cloud. So with one click, I could say free up space if this was downloaded on my machine, and it would actually still keep it available to me, but it would remove it from my local machine and only keep it in the cloud. So it's a very simple way from which you can organize that as well as sync multiple devices. And one of the things that we wanted to show, because we said one of the tips we're going to show you is how to share. And Kim, we probably should switch back once I switch back to you, so you can show how to do this also in the web. But right from your Explorer, you can actually click on share. So then it'll say, well, what do you want to do here? So if you see that I can share with people in Mytech, or I can actually say existing access, specific people. I don't think I can allow for anyone from here, but you see that there's multiple choices I have here, and I can say also allow editing or not. And then I can actually, type in who I want. So if I was going to, synchronize with Kim, it'll actually automatically look to our reference, and I can sync it with, share that with Kim. And the other thing that I can also I can either copy the link to do it. I could send the message right from here, or I could copy the link, it'll open up an email, or I could open it up another app. So there's some really quick and easy sharing that you can do. And I'll actually see if I can type in an external email that I use to so I actually have a separate external email that I use to test. So it actually recognized that email. So I could actually share that with Kim internally, and I can also share it with somebody externally by just sending it to their email. And that's where you can also choose, again, to allow editing or not when you actually share some of that. So there's multiple ways in which you can share. I'm not going to actually click send on that at the moment because Kim doesn't need to see my reimbursement receipts. But that's some simple ways just from your File Explorer where your team can actually manage whether or not they keep files on their machine, whether they keep it in the cloud. Kim, I'm just passing the token back to you, or whether or not they share internally or externally.
Alrighty. Thank you very much for that. And let's see. Can you see my screen now?
I'm still waiting to see it, but if you showed your screen, it's Stephanie, can you see it?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead. Yeah, my internet connection at the airport, at the hotel is a little slow, so.
Okay, so we'll move right along into Outlook. Outlook's some things that we all use, and email can be the bane of your existence. So some quick tips here. First, organizing conversations, setting up search folders and keeping those searches saved. Using voting buttons when you send out emails, delaying delivery of an email, and then dragging and dropping an email to a calendar, your calendar to create an appointment. So I have this handy test environment set up. First thing, organizing conversations. We all get those emails that have a whole list of responses, and sometimes they're relevant, sometimes they're not, but a lot of times it's just clutter in your mailbox. What you can do is select one of the emails from that thread, and then you'll go up to View, Show as Conversation, and what Outlook will do is consolidate all of those emails into one consolidated dropdown. From here, you can do any sort of specialization if you're particular about how it looks. Classic indented view is very popular. And then you can also remove it when you're done with that. You can also delete the conversation as a whole, and it will go through the folder and it will remove all of the emails in that thread, which is super handy. Search folders, if you ever have a time where you're looking for anything that has an attachment in it. Let's see, we'll open up a new search folder here in your tools, and they have a lot of defaults. You can kind of create custom search folders if you wanted. But for the purpose here, we'll do mail attachments. Hit OK, and then what you'll find is you have this folder down here that will pull any email with an attachment there. The email will still exist within your actual inbox, so it's not going to go anywhere. If you delete the folder, the email doesn't get deleted, but you'll have it there for quick reference. I know personally I get a lot of reports throughout the week, so this is awesome for trying to nail those down, and then if I have to reference them in the future. Voting buttons. If you're sending out a message to your team and you say, you know, I kind of want to take a look at this, Tell me what you think. Yes, no, I agree, I disagree, whatever. Go into options for the message, and you can select the default options, or you can set a custom. The custom options you would type in, and they'll be separated by a semicolon with no spaces. When you hit close, there you go. You have your voting buttons, and then when you send it, you'll get the responses back with people's voting options. You can also delay delivery from an email using that same exact options tab. Go into delay delivery in the more options area, and then you'll see it right here. Do not deliver before specified date and time. This is really handy if you're compiling a lot of data throughout the day and maybe you want to tweak a message before it goes, or timing wise, because a customer is expecting something right at a specific time, you can delay delivery so it won't send out until that time. And then finally, drag and drop an email onto your calendar. So if we've joined a delivery meeting, you'll get the pop-up here. You can set date and time, and then the awesome thing is it'll have all of the details of the email so that you have your agenda already built out. And then from here you can share, send to different invitees, whatever you might need for your actual meeting. So a lot of really cool features in Outlook that a lot of folks don't know about. All right, Teams.
Yeah.
Teams is
real quick on the Outlook side, if I may, Kim. Yeah, one of the things that I think I know I do this too much, and I know many people that I've communicated with, they do it, is oftentimes instead of they get an email and they're like, oh, I need to do something with that. Some people do flags, and some people will, like one of the things I do, which is probably bad, is I mark it as unread. I'm trying to break myself of that habit and actually schedule it, right? So, okay, I need to deal with this. So instead of trying to think about it or just marking it as unread, I'll just quick drag and drop it to my calendar to actually schedule the time for me to make sure to address the email or respond if it takes me more time to respond. So it's one of those things that just from it's easy to create a calendar appointment, but it's also something to help really time manage your day and make sure that you don't miss important things by scheduling scope. And so it makes it really easy to schedule that last feature. So thanks for showing that.
Excellent point. I also am guilty of that. I have about 500 unread messages right now, so shame on me.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Here we go with Teams. So Teams is the newest version of the chat app in Microsoft World. You can do chat function from an IM or a conversation channel thread version. You can do voice and video calls. You can share your screen. You can also share and edit files, and you can create meetings straight from Teams. And then really handy if you work with anybody that's outside of the country and language may be a barrier, there's language translator. So I have asked our lovely assistant, one of our internal members here, Eric, to join me. So he'll be playing the role of Dan Jump for this purpose. So if we go into the chat function, start a chat and create a new chat just for IM purposes, you type the person's name in there and voila, you've got a message. Since I already have the language piece in there, I just sent him a message in Japanese saying good morning. If he wanted to see what that said in English, hit the drop down. Oh dear, and it's not working. Typically there will be a translate feature here, and
I think that has to be him doing that. So
English.
Yeah, if he was the one receiving, because you're the one that wrote the message, it won't show it for you, but we'll show it for him when he receives it. So
Great. So maybe I'll have him.
I should have, send you a quick note back. Yeah. The translator is a very cool feature for international organizations, and it basically knows to translate it by default to your native language. So like you get to choose and select the language, and then if they're sending you a message in their native language, when you hit the translate button, it comes back in your native language. So here you go, Kim, she can show that to you.
Yeah, and it actually still isn't populating. So.
Oh, that's weird.
Well, sad. Love and technology doesn't agree with you. All right, so if we move into sharing and editing files, if I wanted to share something, I can attach it here, pull from my OneDrive, and let's look at the pre-sales report together. So if I send that over to Dan, maybe it will send. There we go. Couple of things. It'll tell you that you've shared it. If you need to reference it in the future, rather than having to scroll through different tabs, everything will be saved here in your files area. So we can click in there. And if I wanted to work on this with Dan at the same time, we can both launch, we can both edit, and then start typing in new data. The way this works is it will automatically save that. So from the files area, I added that information. And then if I say, Dan, will you please collaborate and make your edits, we'll hop back in. The other handy thing here is you can choose to either edit in Excel Online or the desktop version of Excel. They're fairly similar these days. Microsoft has done a lot of updates, but there are a couple of features that are still available only in the desktop version. For example, some of the advanced reporting features. So as soon as Dan pops in here, I'm clearly getting click happy. So we'll see who's in here up here, and as soon as Dan joins, you'll see him pop up, and then when he starts clicking into different cells, you'll be able to live see what he's editing, and Microsoft will auto-save all of those changes. So we'll give him just another moment here to pop in. Or maybe he's having connection issues.
Yeah, and Kim, as you're waiting for that, one of the things that there was a question that was asked about kind of balancing the security of this. I mean, here we are highlighting how easy it is to share things and collaborate on things. And with Teams now, you can. It was just recently announced that you can do it externally, manage. The balance, the sharing versus security. So one of the features that we didn't highlight today, and we're not going to really be able to go into, but SharePoint does have a way of also, which you can't do really, you can permission things like on your typical file shares, where you can basically say, this group of people have access to this folder structure and this group doesn't. But you can't really, if they have access, you can't really limit how they share it. But in SharePoint you can. So you can actually tag documents as it has a sensitivity scale that you can define it as confidential or really confidential, or hey, hold on, this is a great example. So
yep.
What you just saw is that he asked you had to have permissions to access the file. So Teams inherited, that's an excellent illustration, Teams inherited the permissions of this file, and Dan by default didn't have access to this file. And it doesn't surprise me because it has credit card information in it that you see. So that was one of the things that you can, if you buy permissions, because it's in SharePoint, or even if it's in your file share, Teams will actually then balance the security that you received, that your native account is associated with. And even if you try and share it in Teams, it won't let you access it unless you can then give people permission. Of course, Dan is the CEO, so you imagine that Dan could have access to it, but that's one of the things that Teams does a good job of, or at least this whole the ecosystem of Office 365 does a good job of being able to allow you to have special control over who has access to certain things, even if it's easy to share. It doesn't necessarily pass on the permissions, which it shouldn't, right? You want to keep the permissions. And notice that you were that it gave a request like, hey, Dan, so Kim shared the file, or Karen Berg at the moment, and Dan said, I don't have access. Can you give me access? And then so it gives an approval email to come through, so that actually that can be approved. So now, because Karen had access to had permission to access it or give permission, then now Dan has permission. So we should be able to see Dan now multi-edit.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and as a side note, as you're going into that too, I can flip the screen back over and show you the translate feature, because Stephanie and I were to got that working on our side, so I can show you that.
All right, that sounds good.
All right, so is Dan in there, or?
Let's see, he's trying.
All right. Well, while he's doing that, let me switch this over. I'll actually grab the presenter, take the presenter and share my screen. So hopefully it does that. Over. There we go. Let me know when you can see my screen.
I can see it.
All right, very good. So if you notice, I just had, so we use, you can see the rest of my notes. You can see it. I asked Stephanie, hey, can you send me something in Spanish? Go out to Google Translator, type something in English or Spanish. So she actually typed something. So notice a lot of the things when you look for an office, so this is yet another trick, is that there's this ellipsis that you'll see. You'll see the three little periods or just in lots of different areas in Office 365. Whenever you see those, there are more options there. So I'm going to click on that, and notice I can mark it as unread, or I can hit translate. So I'll hit translate, and it didn't translate. That's interesting. So let me translate on this one. Gosh, the demos don't work.
Yeah.
That's so weird. I've seen this work, and I've tried it multiple times, and it's just not.
Fun fact with Google Translate, if you don't hit the copy function at the top of the screen there in the box, and you just copy it with your highlighter, you won't be able to translate it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Yep.
So there you go.
Fun fact.
That's a good little note.
We found that out while we were playing with it a couple of days ago.
Okay, well, I've now shared you're back as the presenter, Kim. But the translator feature doesn't, there's a lot of people that don't necessarily use that. But especially as this is being extended outside of organizations as of recently, and we do have some clients that have international either customers they work with or staff that work internationally, and so this could be a helpful feature in that regard.
Yep. And here we go. We have file open, and you can see that Dan is also editing, and there he is, making things different. So all of these will get saved, and when we exit out, it's all synced to OneDrive, so we'll all have access to the latest update to the file. So thank you, Dan, for your help. Next is channels and threads and conversation threads within Teams. So channels are kind of a group chat area. So if you have any broadcast messages to send out to folks for HR or finance or sales operations like we have here, you can add all of the employees within that department so they're all receiving the same messages at the same time. One of the nice things about this is when you reply to an actual message, it'll create a conversation thread. So there's no more scrolling through. I know in some other chat applications, you have to scroll through to go find the previous response, and then somebody might start a new conversation on a different topic, and then everything just gets messy. This keeps everything consolidated into one nice, neat conversation where you can hear read all of the responses relating to that particular topic. So super handy. And then you can also mark things as unread, copy links from the message, and then you can share. Another fun feature is you can add GIFs. If you're excited about something or you want to illustrate a point, you can attach files, videos, and then modify your text anyhow that you like. You can also set up meetings from here. So let's say quality is becoming an issue. We need to set up a meeting. And, you know, let's say we want to schedule a quality meeting for this afternoon. In Teams, because you have folks spread out across the country, you can do a video chat. And we'll say, yep, this all looks good. You can meet within a channel. You can meet outside of a channel. And then you can invite specific people if you'd like. So if we invited Dan, schedule, pops into Teams, it'll correspond over to Outlook in your calendar. If we take a look here, there you go. So it all ties together, which is a nice, neat, tidy package for when you're trying to get things done. All right. Forms. We have a couple of people here. Oh, sure.
Sorry, one thing to illustrate as you went to, I didn't want to miss the opportunity relative to, because you can create a Teams meeting in multiple ways. You just illustrated how to create a meeting from Teams. But one of the things that, going back to the drag and drop feature of Outlook, and if you're creating an appointment, can you go to the Outlook in this section
Yep.
and just open up a new, not in Teams, but just in Outlook, and actually pull up a calendar appointment. And then one of the things you'll notice in a calendar appointment, or even right at the top there, you see there's new, you can either join Teams meeting or you can say new Teams meeting up at the top there. So you can actually create a Teams meeting right at the top, and that actually extends and you can do Skype or Teams, but now that Teams actually can be extended outside your environment or to your organization, you can create a Teams meeting from there too. That'll actually send a link, a Teams link in order to connect as well. So it's cool functionality that within a couple clicks you can really easily schedule a web conference or a video chat, as opposed to having to subscribe to GoToMeeting or other third-party applications. You can do that right inside of your Skype or Teams in Outlook.
Excellent point. Alrighty. Okay, so we'll move on to forms. We like surveys and we like creating tests and things like that to make sure our staff knows the information we want them to know. So you can use Microsoft Forms for a number of different things. It creates a web form or a quiz. You can share it internally or externally. So if you're looking for feedback from your customers, this is a great tool to use. And then you can also collect and review the responses. And they actually have a handy export function to Excel so that you can manipulate the data and take a look. So if we take a look in Forms, we'll go to our waffle and open it up. I have a pre-populated sample, but we'll kind of walk through the setup here. You can add a question. You have multiple different options. Choice, where you can select the options for the folks to enter. Text, where they can do a free form. Rating on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 to 10, however you want it. Selecting a date. So if you're trying to plan a party or company picnic or what have you, this would be perfect for that. Then there's the ranking and liker. These typically don't get used as often as the others, but you know, whatever your fancy. So there's the ranking, and then liker becomes one of those multi-matrixed forms. So if we look at an example, there's your free form answer, your selection, rating, date, your ranking, and then your matrix. When you send this out, you can get responses from everybody that answers. You see the average time it took them to complete, what the survey status is, and then there's detail as to what the actual responses were. If you had folks identify themselves when they took the test or the survey, you'd be able to see exactly what folks answered here. And then, like I said, the export to Excel function will pop it up. And of course, it opens on the wrong screen. And there you go. There's your answers. You can build it out into a table. This could link into something that we'll cover here in a little bit called Power BI, which gives you a lot of reporting functionality from your Excel tables. Anything to add, Nate?
Yeah, the only thing I would say that can you show how you, and if I missed it, can you show how you share?
Like, that would be handy.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling that. So anyone with the link, you can send and collect responses either to anyone with the link or only the people in your organization. So I know there's some staff members here, if you send out when do we want our company picnic, they forward it to their significant other and say, what works for us? So you can kind of limit it that way. You can send a QR code. This is actually kind of a handy feature. If you preview, you can see what it looks like on a mobile phone if you have a lot of staff out and about. So QR code will come in handy there. You can also...
I didn't even know you could do the preview. That's the first time I saw that. That's cool. I didn't even know
like I said, you learn something new every day.
That's cool.
Yep, you can embed the survey within a web page or a Sway template. And then, of course, you can email it, and that's great if you're sending to external folks directly. You can also share with folks if you want somebody to collaborate with you or if you're trying to pull a bunch of data together. So a lot of really cool stuff, and I think it's probably something that doesn't get used as much as it would. The voting buttons in Excel and Outlook are great, and polling the staff can be great for certain things, but if you're doing like a CSAT and you don't necessarily want to outsource to another company, this is a good way to do it internally.
Yeah, the only thing that I I'd like to know about the sharing feature, thank you, Kim, is if you go back really quick to anyone inside or outside the organization, anyone with the link can add. So this is basically if you want it anonymous, even if you wanted it, so if you're sharing just internally, like you say, only people in my organization can respond. But what it's going to do though is when it captures the data, it's actually going to tag it and associate it with their username and password, because you're basically saying they have to log in to do it. So if you're doing an internal survey and you want to capture who's responding, when you send it internally is fine. If you send it, if you want to do it anonymously internally, you can do anyone with the link can respond. But also when you send it if you send it anonymously or so that anyone with the link can respond, it doesn't tell you who responded. So if you want to know who responded, you have to ask. So it's just understanding those subtle nuances, because basically if you say anyone inside the organization, it will require them to authenticate to your SharePoint, because this is built into SharePoint, in order to respond, and so it will automatically capture that. Otherwise it won't. So it's just a minor detail, but just something that you don't want to miss if you're trying to categorize your responses or pull responses by person.
Yes, and sometimes that's so important. So,
right.
Okay, and let's see.
And what I also found on the forums, sorry, just the trivia that's noted there, I put on the form the last slide there, is not there on the actual PowerPoint presentation. The last, the forms can replace other free or paid services like SurveyMonkey. I noted that because several people that have gone through our immersion experiences have said, well, yeah, they're paying for SurveyMonkey because that's what allows them to be able to download the data and analyze the data, whereas this you're already paying for if you're using O365, and it gives you the capability included in what you're already paying for. So you might be able to reduce some costs for third-party applications you might be paying for.
Yep. Awesome. All right, Planner. So Planner gives you a methodology to kind of chunk out any major projects that you might have. You can organize by buckets, add people either for collaboration or just visibility purposes. create tasks, assign dates, and create checklists. And then you can sync those tasks with a Outlook calendar so that you get the handy pop-ups and it's easier to kind of keep track of everything. We hop back into Office 365 and we go down to Planner. So for example, if we look at a pre-populated plan, you have, these are your buckets, and then you have set out tasks with dates assigned and different folks assigned. So if we wanted to say Karen, who's the user in this test environment, needs to build out a sales forecast for this newsletter, and she needs to have it done by yesterday because we're all running a little late. You can select there, and there you go. You have all of your folks, and then the people that just have visibility into what's going on are other members of the organization who might just be ancillarily involved or just barely touched, but they need to have an awareness. So you can add folks here. Oops, and it doesn't want to find Dan. Weird. You can group by bucket, who's assigned what tasks, what the progress is, all kinds of great stuff. You can also pull up charts of what tasks are left, what's been done, not done, so you have a quick dashboard of who's responsible for what and where their progress stands. You can also look at the schedule view. So yes, this is a built-in calendar within Planner. You can add your plan to Outlook by publishing it. We'll see it pop up for Karen here. And you hit save. And there we go. We have a new calendar specifically for this project, and there's all of the tasks assigned. So really easy to kind of keep track of who's doing what the deadlines are, and keep everything on track. Any additions, Nate?
No, I think the only thing I'd say relative to the trivia there is that if you have if you're using a third-party project management tool, that probably has more features and capabilities than Planner does. But if you're just trying to find something to help you organize some of these things, Planner could be a great resource. So that would be the only thing I would suggest. If this could be a great resource of planning and collaborating with the team, but if you're already using like a third-party project management, it might not be the right fit. But Microsoft is developing it rapidly, and everything stuff evolves very quickly. So it might be something to consider in the future.
Yep, it's great for the high-level items. All right, Microsoft Flow. What we're going to show you with Flow, it's this built-in trigger and action feature that Microsoft has. So the example we'll show you today is how you can automatically save any attachments emailed to you to your OneDrive. There are a ton of templates available that you can access, and then you can also build your own flows if you're inclined in that way. Let's see, flows near the bottom. Where did it go? Here it is.
As you pull that up, like this is something that doesn't necessarily mean you want to save all your attachments to your OneDrive. It's just trying to show you an illustration of something you can do to automate some sort of function.
Right. So like I said, there's a ton of templates out here. The one that we're showing you today is actually a template just to get the idea across of what it is. So if you go into flows, you can look at the template by application, and then here's saving Office 365 attachments to OneDrive. So the system will say, okay, I'm looking at your OneDrive and making sure that we're connected and we have the permissions. Same thing with Outlook, and then you can create the flow. Since I already have it created, this is what you would see on the next page. So yep, it's live, it's active. You can click into it. You can see the run history of when things have happened. So for example, I had Dan Jump send me an email earlier today. This is how the flow works. And when we look at my OneDrive, well, first I'll show you the email, I suppose. So when we look here, there's a cover letter template that Dan sent me earlier. We can look in our OneDrive. And email attachments from Flow. There we go. We have the file available so that we can edit it, modify it, do whatever we need, and then you can collaborate and share from there. You can share it to SharePoint, you can send externally, all kinds of great stuff. So quick and handy. There's a whole bunch of other things that you can do with Excel, additional things with Outlook, Word, and there's even some integrations available for outside applications like Dropbox, if that's something that you're using as a file store. All right. And then Power BI is our final topic today. Power BI gives you kind of an intuitive interface if you're not inclined in Excel on how to put charts together and analyze data in a report function. So what we're going to do, go into Power BI from the waffle, and you'll see that there's some pre-populated information. If we're creating a new report, you would go here, create, select report. You can import new data or use existing data sets. You can pull from files, databases, something in the organization if it's been shared from another folk or another department or other folks. So it's a great collaboration tool, and it's really awesome. I know that I struggle with sharing data with my team on a consistent basis where I have to go update a spreadsheet and then I have to generate the report and then I have to send it to them. This will create a dashboard that allows them to see the updated information as soon as I make the modifications to the file. So if you import it, and it's important to note that when you're importing Excel information, it does have to be in a table format. You can't have it in a range format. So you've imported the information. You can create a report from your existing data sets and create. So if we're doing just a quick version here, let's say we want to know what our transaction amounts per region were. Let's do it in pie chart, so it's nice and easy to see. You can do all sort of modifications here, and this is where the intuitiveness of the system comes in. It's really just drag and drop fields. So what kind of values do you want? Do you want it to be a sum or an average or just a count? You can identify what the filters are. So if you want to say, I only want to see Midwest and Northeast, what's the comparison there? You can do that. You can also do some advanced filtering if it only contains certain items within the legend or within the data set. So it becomes really powerful. And then you can do all sorts of modifications. So for example, we want the legend to be on and we want to change this to the data value. So now we can see the South had $197 million in revenue for, or in bank remittances for that quarter or whatever the data set might be. So when you save this and publish it, you can now share it with anybody within your organization. When you look at your recents, you'll be able to see it, and everybody will have access to this handy report. So it's a quick snapshot of all of the information that people might need for whatever your position might be, your department might be. It just really summarizes it in a nice, neat package. Nate?
And that, yeah, I would say this is just scratching the surface of Power BI. Microsoft is investing very heavily in this functionality to be able to build dynamic reporting from potentially multiple data sources, externally, internally, SQL databases, Excel spreadsheets, to really give your team the ability to access the information that they need in order to make business decisions, right? And we all, like every client that we work with, one of the things that they always tell us is trying to get good data and get people access to it in a timely fashion. Reporting is always an issue. So this is an area where we'd highly recommend spending some time. We're happy to help and there's some video tutorials that are right in your O365 portal, but there's some great capabilities in Power BI that if you haven't checked it out, I would definitely do it.
Yep. And I've pulled up another dashboard where you can see all kinds of comparisons from an international scale based on months, based on quantity by promotion. So yeah, you can consolidate all kinds of information into a single dashboard, and that's really where it becomes so powerful. So, all right. So I think that takes us through all of our tips for today, unless Nate, you have anything to add.
No, that's really it. I mean, I counted, as I was putting it together, I know we said 25 tips and trips, but I think we hit at least 30 or more as we highlighted a couple of the things as we went through. I know that was a rapid fire session, but we tried to identify some of the most common ones that people could use quickly, as well as that I think impact people. So thank you, Kim, for taking us through that. Again, as I mentioned, I wanted to highlight we go through a half-day session where we dig into these things and these capabilities and more, where you can play with it. The demo environment that Kim was illustrating, basically all that's pre-populated data that you can play with, and you can't break anything. So we have those coming up. You'll get a link with the email tomorrow, but love for you and the members of your team to come if you feel like you want to dig into O365 a little bit more and see how you can help, start solving communication and collaboration challenges that we all have. So that's our immersion experience. One other event, a couple other events that we have to follow up to this one that we have coming up. Kim, I don't know if you advance the slide yet or not on the next. Thank you. So we have our live hacking demo both in Colorado and Minnesota. In Minnesota, it's on July 25th. In Colorado, it's on the 1st. For those of you who are listening, we have an ex-NSA operator that's going to be doing a live hack in front of everybody. This guy is one of the top 10 ethical hackers in the world, and he's going to illustrate how he's done, proactive and offensive and defensive cyber warfare for the U.S. government. So he basically knows how hackers think, and he basically will show you how you can, work to protect yourself from it by illustrating a real live hack. So come on down for that. It's going to be a great event. Again, that's at mytech.com/events. And then as a follow-up, if you're looking to dig into SharePoint, SharePoint is one of the most common, if we talk about one of the applications that our clients and prospects ask us about is SharePoint. How can I use SharePoint better? What are the things I can do with SharePoint? Why should I use SharePoint versus my file share? And there was even some questions that came in today about SharePoint and some of the capabilities. Well, we have a presenter from Microsoft on August 22nd. The Mytech U for next month is actually going to be presenting on 4 ways to start leveraging SharePoint. Really some low-hanging fruit and some key capabilities that SharePoint can bring to your organization to get you start using it. So I would highly recommend checking that out if SharePoint is of interest to you or your organization. It'll be, like I said, it'll be presented from a Microsoft expert. So hopefully you can join us then as well. And with that said, that's all we have, Kim. The recording will be available tomorrow. By the end of the day today, we'll actually have it, but it'll be sent out to you all tomorrow, as well as with these links. So without further ado, Kim, thank you very much. Any final comments before we sign off?
No, I'm happy to be here and to have done this, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anything comes out of this. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, great point, Kim. If you have other follow-up questions as you're digging into O365, we have multiple people in our organization that are trained and certified to help you with this stuff. So we're happy to help. Let us know if we can. And thank you all very much for listening today. And for those who are watching in the future, have a great day, and we're signing off.